May God bless your day and the week ahead. Today, we are sending a divine blessing your way as we take you straight back to the year 1010 BC.
Which is just a massive turning point in history.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we are heading to a blood-soaked mountain where a terrified king is waking up to his final, most horrifying day on Earth. So, welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to get into this one.
Same here. Today's mission is centered on this fascinating stack of study Bible excerpts, specifically zeroing in on 1 Samuel chapter 31.
Right, which is just packed with detail.
It really is. We are looking at historical commentary. We have these ancient geographical maps laid out. And, well, we basically have a narrative that forces us to examine leadership in total collapse.
Yeah, it's the tragic final hours of Israel's very first king, Saul, at the Battle of Mount Gilboa.
So, okay, let's unpack this, because our goal here is to get beneath the ancient dust. We want to look at the mechanics of psychological warfare.
And, how leaders operate when their options hit absolute zero.
Exactly. And the profound lengths people will go to repay a decades-old debt of honor.
Yeah, it's a heavy topic. But the materials we are reviewing today, they provide this really meticulous look at a nation's darkest hour.
They really ground this massive theological narrative in just brutal tactical reality.
They do. Because to understand the gravity of King Saul's final moments, you really have to look at the geographical nightmare illustrated in the source maps.
Right, the geography is basically the whole story here.
Exactly. So the Philistine forces, they had mobilized from a staging ground called Aphek, and they marched north to Shunem.
Okay, and why is Shunem so important?
Well, Shunem is critical because it overlooks the Jezreel Valley. And if you look at the map, it is this massive, flat, expansive land.
Oh, right. And the Philistines had superior technology, didn't they?
Yeah, they had iron weapons and, crucially, chariots. And chariots operate perfectly on flat terrain.
Like tanks in an open field.
Exactly like that. Meanwhile, Saul and the Israelite army, they are camped nearby at the spring of Jezreel. So, by controlling the high ground at Shunem and the flat valley below, the Philistines effectively trapped the Israelite forces.
They rendered their infantry completely vulnerable.
Right. It was over before it started, really.
And you can see it in the text, too. The sources paint a picture of a leader who is psychologically broken before the first sword is even swung.
Oh, completely. The text actually notes that Saul was utterly terrified by the sheer scale of the Philistine army.
I mean, his fear was so paralyzing that he broke his own laws, right? He slipped away in the dead of night to consult a medium at Endor.
Yeah, he was desperately trying to summon the deceased prophet Samuel, basically looking for any sort of tactical or spiritual lifeline.
Which just shows how desperate he was.
It does. And the historical reality of ancient warfare, it relied heavily on the confidence and the perceived divine backing of the leader.
Right, the troops are watching their king.
Exactly. So when a king operates from a place of pure desperation, attempting to summon ghosts because he feels abandoned by his god, that terror invariably bleeds into the ranks.
It's contagious.
Highly contagious. So by morning, when the Philistines actually launched their assault, the Israelite formation just completely shatters.
They can't hold the valley at all.
No. They are forced to flee uphill, up the really rugged slopes of Mount Gilboa.
And this wasn't like an organized tactical retreat, was it?
Not at all. It is a chaotic, desperate scramble to escape chariot units and heavily armed infantry.
And the casualty report is just absolute devastation. I mean, Saul's three sons, Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua, they are cut down in the slaughter on the mountain.
Yeah, it's a total wipeout of the royal line.
Yeah.
And Saul himself is caught in the thick of the collapse.
Right, the battle presses incredibly heavy around him, and then the Philistine archer corps finds his position.
Which is the worst-case scenario. Ancient archery units were highly organized and just devastatingly effective.
They weren't just picking off single targets, right?
No, they employed this mass volley fire. It could arc right over defensive lines and rain down on a retreating force. Escaping chariots on a rocky slope is one thing, but, you cannot outrun a hail of arrows.
Wow. So Saul is hit. He's critically, fatally wounded.
Yeah. He is bleeding out on the side of a mountain, literally surrounded by the bodies of his sons, and he knows his capture is imminent.
So knowing capture is inevitable, Saul turns to his armor bearer. And this is his most trusted confidant, right? The guy whose sole job is to shield him in combat.
Exactly. His literal human shield.
Right. So Saul orders him to draw his sword and run him through. He specifically states he wants to die by the hands of his own man.
Because he's terrified of what the enemy will do.
Exactly. He says he doesn't want the uncircumcised, the Philistine enemy, to capture him, torture him, and make a public mockery of him.
Which was standard practice back then, honestly.
Right. But the text simply says the armor-bearer was terrified and refuses. And I was thinking about this. Imagine a modern corporate or military crisis.
Yeah.
You have a trusted subordinate. Suddenly, their leader, the person they've sworn to protect, asks them to basically pull the plug on the entire operation, like to metaphorically or literally execute the leader to save face.
Right. It goes against all their training.
Exactly. The subordinate freezes because the weight of that action so completely contradicts their core duty to protect. So is this a case of physical cowardice, or is it like a paralyzing reverence for his commander?
Well, the historical and cultural context pushes that paralysis way beyond a modern crisis of command.
Oh, really? How so?
Because in the ancient Israelite worldview, the armor-bearer's refusal isn't just about the psychological dissonance of killing his boss. Saul wasn't merely a commanding officer, he was the Lord's anointed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he had been literally anointed with sacred oil by a prophet.
Oh.
So to strike down God's chosen king was considered a supreme blasphemy.
Like an unforgivable sin.
Exactly, an act that carried a literal divine death sentence. So the armor-bearer isn't just afraid of blood, He's experiencing spiritual terror.
He's being ordered to cross a taboo that threatens his very soul.
Right. But escaping the arrows wasn't enough.
No. And with his armor-bearer paralyzed by that spiritual terror, Saul is left with zero options. The Philistine infantry is closing the distance.
They are right on top of him.
So Saul takes his own sword, plants it, and falls on it. He takes his own life.
It's a brutal end. And witnessing this, the armor-bearer realizes the absolute finality of the situation.
Yeah, he immediately follows suit, throwing himself on his sword and dying right there next to his commander.
Although the study notes do point out a fascinating piece of historical tension regarding this exact moment.
Oh, right, the conflicting account.
Yeah, because while 1 Samuel 31 provides this definitive account of Saul dying by suicide, falling on his own sword, there is a conflicting claim that appears just a chapter later in the historical record, in 2 Samuel chapter 1.
Where a scavenger shows up, right?
Exactly. And an Amalekite scavenger comes to David claiming that he, the Amalekite, was actually the one who delivered the final fatal blow to Saul at the wounded king's request.
It creates a real fog of war scenario.
It does. But the sources highlight this discrepancy to illustrate the nature of ancient historical reporting. The Amalekite was likely lying, hoping to curry favor and reward from David by claiming to have eliminated David's rival.
That makes sense. But regardless of the specific chaotic sequence of events on that mountain, the tactical result is identical.
Right. The king is dead, the royal heirs are dead, and the Israelite army is decimated.
And the vacuum of power created by that defeat is immediate and just catastrophic. The Israelites living in the surrounding valleys, and even those living way across the Jordan River, they see their army routed.
And they hear that the royal family has been wiped out.
Total panic sets in. They completely abandon their cities. They just pack up whatever they can carry and flee into the hills.
Leaving everything behind. And the Philistines, they don't even have to lay siege to these settlements. They simply march in and occupy the empty homes.
Which is wild.
It is. And the occupation of those specific cities represents this massive tactical shift in the region.
Because of the geography again.
Exactly. By moving into the Jezreel Valley and the areas along the Jordan, the Philistines effectively drive a wedge right through the center of Israel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they seize control of the major agricultural hubs and the primary international trade routes connecting Egypt to Mesopotamia. So Israel isn't just defeated militarily. It is geographically and economically cut in half.
But, here's where it gets really interesting, because the physical battle on Mount Gilboa is over, but the war for the minds of the surviving Israelites has just begun.
The psychological war, yeah.
Exactly. The very next day, Philistine soldiers are sweeping the battlefield. They're stripping the dead of their armor and valuables, which is, standard practice for victors claiming the spoils of war.
Right.
But while clearing the slopes, they stumble upon the ultimate prize, the royal bodies of Saul and his 3 sons.
And they don't just take the armor and bury the dead.
No, they don't.
The narrative shifts into this brutal masterclass in psychological warfare. They decapitate King Saul. They strip him of his royal weapons.
So gruesome.
It really is. Then they dispatch messengers throughout the entire Philistine territory to broadcast this victory, specifically announcing it in the temples of their idols and to their civilian population.
They turn it into this massive propaganda campaign. I mean, they take Saul's armor and place it as a trophy in the Temple of Ashtaroth.
Which is a huge detail.
Right, and for you listening, the context here is vital. Ashtaroth was a major Canaanite fertility and war goddess, often worshipped as the consort of Baal.
Exactly.
But they don't stop at the armor. They take Saul's headless corpse, along with the bodies of his sons, and they physically nail them to the towering wall of a city called Bethshan.
And the geography of Bethshan really explains the strategic calculation behind this desecration.
It wasn't just a random spot, was it?
Not at all. Bethshan wasn't some remote village. It was located at this massive geographical bottleneck, the intersection of the north-south highway along the Jordan Valley and the east-west road cutting right through the Jezreel Valley.
Like the Times Square of the ancient world.
Basically, yeah. During the Iron Age, it functioned as a major stronghold, previously serving as an Egyptian administrative center.
Wow.
So by pinning the headless body of the Israelite king to the wall of this specific city, they're turning him into a gruesome billboard. It was visible to countless travelers, merchants, and refugees.
I mean, it is the ancient equivalent of a hostile corporate takeover.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like, imagine a massive conglomerate entirely swallows up a rival company. They don't just quietly absorb the assets.
No, they want everyone to know.
Exactly. They take the defeated rival's proprietary tech or their iconic corporate logo and mount it right in the lobby of their own global headquarters. They issue press releases to every industry publication.
Right, sending a very clear message.
Yeah, they're sending a message to every employee, shareholder, and competitor that says, we aren't just better than them, we own them. Our system is completely superior.
What's fascinating here is how the Philistines weaponized the physical remains to specifically target the theology of the Israelite nation.
The psychological warfare extends to the spiritual.
Exactly. Placing the armor in the temple of Ashtaroth, I mean, that is a deliberate theological statement. It's saying, our gods have overpowered your God.
Wow.
And in the ancient Near East, the concept of the afterlife was deeply tied to the proper treatment of the physical body.
So hanging them on the wall was even worse than just a physical insult.
Oh, way worse. To leave a body unburied, exposed to scavenging birds and wild dogs, was considered the ultimate curse. It denied the deceased peace in the underworld.
That is just bleak.
It is. By mutilating Saul and hanging him on a wall, the Philistines are attempting to obliterate his dignity in this life and the next, basically paralyzing any thought of an Israelite rebellion.
Right, because if you are an Israelite hearing this news, your hope is just entirely extinguished. The anointed king is a headless trophy at a major intersection.
It's devastating.
It feels like the absolute bleakest end of the story. But just when the narrative seems to close on a note of total despair, there is this incredible pivot.
Yeah, the rescue mission.
Right. Rumors of what the Philistines have done reach a town across the Jordan River called Jabesh Gilead.
And the residents of Jabesh Gilead hear about the desecration at Bethshan. The text notes that all the valiant men of the city just mobilize.
They don't send diplomats to negotiate for the bodies.
No, they initiate a high-risk recovery operation.
They execute a night march that honestly defies logic. I mean, our study notes specifically measure this out. It is a 16-kilometer march.
Right, roughly 10 miles.
10 miles. But this isn't a hike on a paved trail. We are talking about a grueling march in pitch darkness through rugged, highly hostile terrain.
Oh, completely. They have to wade across the Jordan River, navigate these deep ravines, and sneak past Philistine garrisons.
Just to reach the base of the massive mound where Bethshan sits.
Right. They are operating entirely under the cover of darkness in enemy-occupied territory. And think about the logistics. They have to scale the approach to the city wall, unfasten rotting, mutilated bodies from the stone while avoiding the attention of the Philistine guards sleeping nearby.
That is terrifying.
It is. And then they have to carry the dead weight of 4 adult men 10 miles back across the river. If they make a sound, if a patrol spots them, they will be slaughtered and nailed to that exact same wall.
But they pull it off. They retrieve the bodies of Saul and his sons, and they carry them all the way back to Jabesh.
It's an unbelievable feat.
But then the text provides a detail that really forces you to pause. When they get the bodies back, they burn them. They cremate the king and his sons.
Which is really unusual.
Right. Based on the cultural context of the ancient Near East, burning a body seems profoundly disrespectful. Why execute a perilous 10-mile night mission behind enemy lines just to burn the bodies when they get home?
Well, in ancient Israelite culture, cremation was entirely outside the norm. Our source notes explicitly state that burning a corpse was normally considered a profanation.
Like a severe desecration of the dead.
Exactly. Burial in the earth or a family tomb was the only standard respectful practice to ensure the soul's rest.
So it seems completely counterintuitive to the rescue.
It does. But the historical reality of the body's condition really dictated their actions here.
Because they had been hanging there for a while.
Right. Saul and his sons had been brutally killed in combat. Saul was decapitated. Those bodies were then exposed to the elements, hung on a stone wall in the intense heat of the Middle Eastern sun for days.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they were decomposing and had likely been heavily mutilated by scavengers. So a standard public burial might actually leave the remains vulnerable to being dug up and further dishonored by advancing Philistine forces.
Okay, I see. The men of Jabesh-Gilead recognized that the flesh was already ruined.
Exactly.
So the fire wasn't a desecration, it was a protective measure.
It was an extreme measure dictated by an extreme situation. Burning the bodies was literally the only definitive way to purify the remains and protect Saul from any further abuse.
That makes so much sense.
And the text carefully notes that they didn't reduce the bodies to ash and scatter them. After the cremation, the bones remained.
The bones were crucial, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They took those remaining bones, which were seen as the anchor of the individual in ancient thought, and they gave them a proper, honorable burial under a prominent tamarisk tree in Jabesh.
And to signify their profound grief, the entire community fasted for 7 days.
Right, a 7-day fast is a massive communal commitment to mourning.
But the underlying question still remains, why Jabesh-Gilead?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Out of all the cities in Israel, many of which were currently abandoning their homes and running for the hills, why did the men of this specific town risk their lives?
To march 10 miles in the dark.
Right, and perform this intense protective ritual for a defeated, disgraced king.
Yeah, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, delving into the historical callbacks provided in our study notes, the motivation becomes incredibly clear.
Okay, lay it on me.
Decades earlier, at the very beginning of Saul's reign, which is actually recorded back in 1 Samuel chapter 11, the city of Jabesh-Gilead was utterly defenseless and under siege.
Right, they were surrounded by a warlord named Nahash the Ammonite.
Yes. Nahash the Ammonite had surrounded Jabesh-Gilead and offered them this horrific term of surrender. He said he would only spare their lives if he could gouge out the right eye of every man in the city.
Just to bring disgrace on all of Israel.
Exactly. So the city sent out a desperate plea for help. And a newly anointed young King Saul heard their plea.
Oh, wow.
He rallied the fragmented tribes of Israel, marched an army to Jabesh-Gilead, and completely routed the Ammonites, saving the city from torture and ruin.
That completely reframes the rescue mission. I mean, this isn't random heroism at all. This is the repayment of a decades-old debt of honor.
The people of Jabesh-Gilead never forgot the man who saved them when they were at their most vulnerable.
That is incredible.
Yeah, Saul's reign may have ended in paranoia, failure, and this humiliating defeat on Mount Gilboa, but the men of Jabesh-Gilead remembered the valiant leader who secured their freedom.
They couldn't save him from the Philistine archers in life.
But they were absolutely determined to risk everything to honor his memory in death.
Man, it is such a striking reality for you, listening right now, about how our actions ripple through time.
It really is.
Loyalty pays dividends in ways you cannot possibly map out. The good you do early in your career, the kindness you show someone when they have their back against the wall, it echoes across decades.
You might assume people forget those interventions, but they don't.
No, they don't. That early investment in someone else's survival can inspire them to show up for you, to march through the dark for you when you are at your absolute lowest point.
The narrative demonstrates that our actions have an incredibly long tail. I mean, the Philistines attempted to write the final chapter of Saul's life.
Right. They engineered a massive propaganda campaign to ensure his legacy was one of ultimate humiliation on the wall of Bethshan.
But the men of Jabesh-Gilead just hijacked that propaganda machine. They reclaimed the narrative through sheer loyalty.
You cannot always control the circumstances of your defeats. Saul couldn't overcome the tactical disadvantage on Mount Gilboa. But the relationships you forge along the way, they can protect your dignity when you lack the power to protect it yourself.
That's a powerful takeaway.
Which leaves you with a thought to mull over as we wrap up our analysis today. We spend so much of our lives agonizing over our Mount Gilboa moments, right?
Oh, for sure.
Our public failures, our crises, the times we are completely overwhelmed by the opposition. We convince ourselves that those defeats will permanently define our legacy. But what if your legacy isn't defined by your worst defeat?
That's the real question.
What if instead your legacy is defined by the Jabesh Gileads in your life? The people whose lives you quietly impacted, who are willing to march through the darkness to restore your dignity when you fall.
It completely shifts the entire measurement of a life, from the battles you win to the loyalty you cultivate.
Absolutely beautifully said. Thank you for joining us as we explored this profound historical narrative. As you head back into your routine, take that question with you. God blesses all the listeners.
Thanks for tuning in.
Take care, and we will catch you on the next Deep Dive.